Hello, and welcome to the Cognitive Edge, where teachers, librarians, technology professionals, and educational leaders do come together to examine the issues that are shaping learning, childhood, and the future of education. I am Dr. Daniel A. Sable. Today, I want to talk about something that happens in schools almost every day. Um, but maybe it should be looked at. Um, a teacher pulls out a phone. A group of children gallows around a project. Um, Someone smiles and says, hello. A photograph is taken. Um, Within minutes, that image may be sent to parents, posted in a classroom app, added to a school district newsletter, placed on a district website, or shared through social media. So it could really make its way around. Most of us do not think of this as controversial. In fact, classroom photography is usually presented as something positive. It documents learning, it keeps families connected, and it celebrates student achievement. It provides evidence of classroom engagement. It helps schools show the community what is happening inside their buildings, and all of that can be true. But there's another question that educators um, have uh, not examined carefully enough. Did the child want the picture taken? And even more importantly, did the child understand where that picture was going? A recent research article in the Journal of Early Childhood Research examined how preschool children, their mothers, and their teachers viewed photography and photo sharing in early childhood classrooms. The study found on 5-year children, a group that adults often assume is too young to understand privacy, consent, or digital sharing. The findings challenge that assumption that children in the study were not confused about whether they liked being photographed. They were not incapable of expressing their discomfort. They were able to describe who they trusted, who they considered a stranger, and how they felt when adults took their photographs, and whether they wanted their images shared. Some children um, enjoy being photographed. You know, they love it, and um, that's that. Others, they did not. Some felt proud and excited or happy. Others were embarrassed or bored or angry or uncomfortable or afraid. Some children wanted their parents to see the pictures, but did not want strangers to see them, maybe. Um, we do run into the occasions where we have some students who wanted to know where the photograph was being sent to. Some believe that adults should ask them before sharing or taking their image. This matters because adults frequently treat photography as a harmless classroom routine when we may ask parents to sign a media release form at the beginning of the school year. And once that form is signed, we often act as though the matter has been settled. Legally, perhaps it has. Ethically, it has not. Parental consent is definitely important, but parental consent is not the same as child assent. A parent may have the legal authority to approve school photography, but the child is still the person standing in front of the camera. The child is still the one who faces, whose body, whose classroom behavior, whose friendships, emotions, and educational experiences are being recorded. The child is the one whose image may remain online for years. The child is the one who must live with a digital footprint created long before they could fully understand what a digital footprint really was. Um, Adults own the phone, um, schools manage the website, parents sign the form, but the child owns the experience of being seen. And that distinction should force us to reconsider how schools um, photograph our children. Let us begin with a basic principle that children are not classroom decorations. They are not promotional material. They are not evident that a school is excited, innovative, diverse, joyful, technologically advanced, or worthy of community praise. Children are human beings with developing identities, emotions, preferences, and rights. And I think that should be just left right alone. Um, you know, students, they need their place and their space, and that's not something that I'm willing to take away. But it does not mean that every classroom, um, you know, this is going to do some type of harm with uh, intent of ill will. Um, Most teachers, they photograph students because they care. They want families to see learning in action. They want to celebrate a child who completed a difficult project. They want to really preserve a meaningful moment. They want to show that the classroom is a community. The problem is not usually bad intent. The problem is that positive intent can make adults overlook the child's perspective. We tell ourselves that the photograph is for the parents. We tell ourselves that the child will appreciate the memory later. And it's very true. We tell ourselves that the school account is private. We tell ourselves that everyone signed the form. Um, we tell ourselves that the child is only shy. We tell ourselves that the child will be fine once everything starts. Uh, Everyone and everything starts coming together. The child will start to smile. Um, but what happens when the child covers their face? What happens when a child walks away? What happens when the child becomes quiet? Um, Really, what happens when the child refuses to pose? Um, what happens when the child says no? Do we treat that as a genuine refusal, um, or do we treat it as behavior that must be corrected? I'm not too sure there. This is probably one of the most important findings raised by the study. Um, Children may communicate refusal verbally, but they may also communicate it non-verbally. They may hide, turn away, cover their faces, cry, resist posing, or move away from the camera. Adults, they do not always recognize those actions as meaningful expressions of consent. Instead, they may call a child shy. They may say the child is being difficult. Um, they may try to encourage a child to cooperate. Um, they may promise a reward. They may tell the child that everyone else is participating. Um, they may just say just one picture. They may take the picture quite quickly before the child has time to object. From the adult's perspective, this may seem minor. From the child's perspective, it may communicate something much larger. Um, it may teach that the child, um, when an adult wants access to their image, their discomfort does not matter. It may teach the child that saying no is not enough. It may teach the child that adults are allowed to redefine um, refusal as shyness, stubbornness, or misbehavior. We should be very careful about that lesson. Schools, they regularly tell children that they have a right to personal boundaries. We teach children about them and also about safety. We encourage them to speak up when something makes them uncomfortable. We tell them that um, trusted adults will listen. But those lessons lose credibility when adults ignore a child's refusal in ordinary situations. Consent cannot be something we teach only in health class, digital citizenship lessons, or anti abuse programs. Consent is learned through daily experience. Children learn whether their boundaries matter by watching how adults respond when they set one. A child who says, I do not want my picture taken, is practicing communication, self awareness, and autonomy. That's not defiance by any means. That's development. In fact, the moment a child refuses a photograph may be more educationally valuable than the photograph itself. The child is learning really to identify discomfort and to know how to express themselves. Um, the child really is learning to express their preference. The child's learning that they are allowed to participate in decisions involving their own image. The adult has an opportunity to model respect. and to show that, that's why they're there, is out of respect for the person, not out of I'm going to try to manipulate you. The correct response does not need to be dramatic. It may be simple. That is okay. You do not have to be in the picture. That sentence teaches a powerful lesson. It teaches the children that their voice has weight. They just say, "No, I'm okay. I'm comfortable not being in it." Um, and that's it. It teaches classmates that participation is not always mandatory. It teaches that respect is more important than creating the perfect classroom post. There's another issue here. The difference between taking a photograph and sharing a photograph. Um, Adults often combine these two actions as though they are the same, and they are not, um, unfortunately. Um, a child may be comfortable with a teacher taking a picture for a private classroom portfolio, but uncomfortable with the photograph appearing on a public website. Um, a child may want the photograph sent to a parent, but not shared with other families, you know, to be kept sort of, I guess, under the realm, so to speak. Um, a child may agree to a group picture, but not want their name included. A child may enjoy seeing the photograph on the classroom wall, but dislike having it placed on social media. And that makes complete sense. Consent should therefore be very specific. Asking, "Can I take your picture?" is not the same as asking, "Can I post this picture online?" Um, when adults ask only the first question, children may not understand the full consequences of saying yes. Um, and we need to really explain the purpose of the photograph in language that the child can understand. How do we break it down? How do we make it easy? So, for example, a teacher might say, "I'd like to take a picture of your science project to show your family," or "I'd like to put this picture in our class newsletter," um, or this picture may go on the school's website where people outside our classroom could see it. The explanation, it does not need to be filled with legal language. Um, 5-year-olds do not need a privacy policy read aloud to them. They need just honesty. They need enough information to make a meaningful and a good choice. Um, Adults sometimes argue that young children cannot give informed consent before they do not fully understand um, the internet. Um, that is partly true, partly not. Most adults do not feel fully, most adults do not fully understand the internet either. Yet we still allow them to make choices. The standard should not be whether a 5-year-old understands data storage, facial recognition, platform ownership, algorithmic dispersion, or online permanence. The question is whether the child can understand a simple, immediate choice. Do you want me to take your picture? Do you want your family to see it? Do you want other people to see it? Um, the research suggests that young children can understand more than adults often assume. They may not understand every long term consequence, but they can recognize strangers and they can express embarrassment. They can distinguish between private and public audiences, and they can tell us when they do not want to participate. Um, that right there is enough reason to listen. This conversation becomes even more important when we consider how much childhood has changed. Um, Previous generations had photographs stored in albums, boxes, drawers, and family cabinets. Today's children may have images stored across classroom platforms, um, parent portals, social networks, cloud services, school websites, messaging apps, and institutional databases. A classroom photograph is no longer necessary a temporary object. So a classroom photograph is no longer necessarily a temporary object. It may be copied, it may be downloaded, it may be screenshotted, it may be reposted, um, and it may be used outside its original context. It may remain accessible long after the child has left the school. Technology makes sharing easy, but it also makes forgetting difficult. That should change how we think about educational documentation, and know that not every meaningful learning moment needs to become content. That is a difficult statement in an age when school feels pressure to demonstrate activity constantly. Schools want parents to see vibrant classrooms. Administrators want evidence of engagement. Districts want material for newsletters. And teachers may feel pressure to maintain classroom pages. Um, so, to wrap things up, programs want photographs for funding reports. Organizations want evidence of participation. Social media rewards frequent visual updates. These are just some of the positive things that can come out of using um, any social media site. But you always have to be on your feet and realize that something could go bad just as fast as it can go good. Um, but if you guys, anybody wants to talk or talk about anything, please leave me a message and I will get back to you. All right. Thanks. Talk to you soon. Have a good afternoon. Bye bye.